The bitter January winds cut through my coat as I stood at our front door, the key to our unraveling marriage in my trembling hand. The dissolution of our marriage began a few weeks ago on a cold, dreary evening that I will never forget. I had been working late at the office trying to meet an important deadline when I finally returned home. Upon returning home, I was exhausted and drained. I found my wife, Emily, sitting on the couch. Her face was illuminated by the soft glow of her phone. Her fingers danced across the screen, and a faint smile played on her lips. I greeted her with a tired smile and bent down to kiss her cheek. She jumped as though caught off guard, and quickly hiding her phone behind her back, she replied, "Oh, hey." Her voice was strained, and her cheeks were flushed with guilt. I was unable to shake the feeling that something was amiss, and suspicion began to take root in my mind. I glanced at her phone, attempting to discern what could have caused her distress. That's when I noticed an incoming message. A message from an individual named Alex had been received. I inquired as to the identity of this Alex. Emily took a moment to respond, stating that Alex was merely a friend from Moore. However, the message I had briefly observed indicated a different narrative. The message expressed love and anticipation of future encounters, accompanied by a sense of longing. I was immediately distressed, unable to disregard the unease that arose within me. "My stomach is in knots, Emily. This doesn't look like just a friend," I said, my voice trembling with anger and hurt. "What's going on?" she stammered, her face contorted with guilt. With doubts and fears, this marked the inception of the nightmare that had engulfed our lives. A nightmare from which I was unable to wake over the following weeks. I confronted Emily about the messages, the late nights at work, and her sudden disinterest in our marriage. She continued to deny any wrongdoing and play the victim. I requested a second chance, yet I was aware that she was concealing something. The trust that had previously been the foundation of our marriage had been irreparably damaged, leaving me to confront the painful reality that my wife was engaging in an extramarital affair. The weeks that followed the discovery of Emily's infidelity were excruciating. We had entered a phase of our marriage marked by tension and doubt. Every word and glance was laden with tension. One evening, as we sat in our dimly lit living room, I finally mustered the courage to broach the topic that had been on my mind for some time. "Emily," I began tentatively, my voice trembling, "I can't help but wonder. I am of the opinion that there is more to this story than meets the eye. Your decision to go into a hotel with a friend to unwind does not align with my understanding of the situation." Emily looked at me, her eyes avoiding mine. She stated that it is what she needs right now, a brief respite from the challenges we have faced recently. I could sense the distance growing between us. I empathized with her feelings, but I was perplexed by her choice of hotel. Why not a spa or a resort? Why did she feel the need to stay at a hotel? She paused for a moment, as though searching for the right words. "It's close to where my friend lives," she finally said. She suggested it, and I thought it would be nice to catch up. I was still unconvinced. She was using this friend as a cover for her affair with Alex. "Emily, I just want us to be honest with each other. If you need time away, I respect that, but I need to know the truth." She looked at me, her eyes welling up with tears. "I promise there's nothing going on. You have to trust me." "Please," the words echoed. In my mind, trust was something that felt light years away as the days passed. I found myself obsessing over her planned hotel getaway. Doubt and insecurity accompanied me, and I found it challenging to concentrate on anything else. The night before her trip, Emily packed her bags with a forced smile. Although she attempted to persuade herself that this was merely a brief excursion with an acquaintance, I observed her experience a sense of unease. I attempted to offer words of encouragement, despite my inner turmoil, and she embraced me firmly, her eyes conveying a hint of uncertainty. She vowed, "I will, and I promise, when." Upon my return, we would resume our efforts to improve our relationship. I nodded in agreement, yet I was unable to dispel the notion that she was embarking on something more than just a weekend excursion with a friend. As Emily departed the following morning, I was overcome with a sense of doubt, and I was compelled to seek answers. In the days that followed Emily's departure for the hotel, the truth about her plans weighed heavily on my mind. I found myself tossing and turning at night, consumed by thoughts of her and the affair. I was torn between two conflicting emotions. Should I move on and attempt to heal our fractured marriage, or should I was torn between two conflicting emotions, on the one hand, the desire to confront her and seek the truth, and on the other, the need to move on and attempt to heal our fractured marriage. This dilemma haunted me throughout the day, and it was a decision I had to make. I could not allow this uncertainty to continue to affect me. I had to know the truth, even if it meant facing the harsh reality of Emily's actions. I would go to the hotel in the morning, hoping against hope to catch her and her affair partner post-encounter. As I drove the children to school, I could not help but replay my decision over and over in my mind. Part of me hoped that I was wrong and that my trust in Emily would be restored. However, the other part of me was prepared for the worst, a confrontation that could change our lives forever. As I dropped the children off at school, I observed them walk away, their innocent smiles a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing inside me. I recognized the need to be strong, not just for myself but for them as well, as I approached. The hotel lobby was a hub of activity, yet I felt a sense of unease. I parked my car nearby and took a moment to compose myself before entering. My palms were clammy, and I felt a pit in my stomach. I settled into a corner of the hotel's breakfast area, strategically positioned to have a view of the entrance. The minutes turned into hours as I waited, my eyes darting nervously and my pulse quickening with each passing moment. The aroma of fresh coffee and the clinking of dishes became a backdrop to my mounting anxiety. The clock on the wall seemed to tick louder with each passing second, and doubt began to creep in. What if I was incorrect in my assumption? Perhaps Emily was innocent, and my preoccupation with her was unwarranted. The messages, the secrecy, they all seemed to indicate something more sinister. As the morning sun streamed through the windows, casting long shadows across the room, I felt a growing sense of unease. I had not yet encountered Emily or her fair partner at the hotel breakfast area was the culmination of my pursuit. As the clock struck noon, I was compelled to make a decision, to persist in waiting for further developments, or to accept the possibility that I might never ascertain the truth. My heart raced, and the gravity of my decision weighed heavily upon me. However, I was ultimately unable to make a definitive choice. I had embarked on a path that would ultimately lead me to the answers I so desperately sought. The hotel lobby had become my solitary refuge as I continued my agonizing stakeout, waiting for any sign of Emily or her affair partner. The morning had slipped away, and I was overcome with a growing sense of unease, doubt, and anxiety. A sense of unease, doubt, and anxiety grew in intensity, and the minutes stretched into what felt like hours. I maintained a fixed gaze on the entrance, my heart pounding in anticipation with each opening of the door. However, upon realizing that it was not them, my pulse quickened, only to plummet when I considered the possibility that I had made a mistake. It would be a grave error in judgment if my suspicions were nothing more than the product of a tormented mind. The hotel's breakfast area was filled with guests enjoying their meals and engaging in cheerful conversation, which provided a stark contrast to the turmoil I was experiencing internally. The wait staff moved efficiently, refilling coffee cups and clearing plates, while I remained in a state of limbo, unable to emerge from the internal turmoil that had taken hold. A waitress approached, her genial demeanor incongruous with my distressed state of mind. "May I take your order, sir?" she inquired, her pen poised over her notepad. I mustered a feeble smile and shook my head, declining her offer. She acknowledged my response with a nod and proceeded to attend to other patrons. I considered the possibility that the coffee had grown cold, but I hardly noticed. My mind was consumed by questions, doubts, and a deep sense of dread. I checked my watch for what felt like the 100th time, and the hands seemed to move in slow motion. No came and went, and I was unable to shake the sinking feeling that my stakeout might be in vain. I had vainly hoped that they would slip through my grasp, that they would reveal themselves to me as the minutes turned into hours. I began to question my own sanity, wondering whether I was allowing paranoia and insecurity to dictate my actions. But the messages and the secrecy could not all be a figment of my imagination. Finally, as the afternoon sun began its descent, I was confronted with a challenging decision, to persist in waiting for an opportunity to observe Emily and her associate, or to acknowledge the possibility that my assumptions might have been erroneous. The gravity of the choice weighed heavily on my heart, and I was acutely aware that whichever path I took would significantly influence the trajectory of our troubled relationship. The relentless march of time continued, and as the shadows grew longer, I was confronted with the possibility that I had embarked on a quest that might ultimately lead me to a truth I was unprepared to face. As the day progressed, my patience waned, and my determination to uncover the truth reached a crescendo. I reached my limit. I could no longer tolerate the interminable waiting. It was time to adopt a more direct approach. I required confirmation, regardless of the discomfort it might entail. With a deep breath, I approached the hotel's reception desk. A young woman with a friendly smile greeted me. "How may I assist you today, sir?" I replied in a calm, collected manner. Despite my outward composure, I was consumed by a sense of trepidation. I sought assistance regarding a potential guest who might be staying at the establishment. The receptionist, who was poised above the keyboard, inquired about the guest's name. I took a moment to collect my thoughts, recognizing that my actions might challenge the facade of my wife's innocence. The guest's name was Emily Thompson. The receptionist typed in the name and, after a brief interval, provided the room number. She proceeded to click and type, then looked up at me with a nod, indicating that the guest in question was indeed registered. My heart sank, but I pressed on, inquiring about the room number. She paused for a moment, her gaze assessing me, perhaps sensing the tension in my voice. "I'm sorry, sir, but I can't provide room numbers without proper authorization." I had anticipated this roadblock and reached into my pocket, pulling out a small envelope. I have her passport was left at home, and I wanted to ensure that she had it during her stay. The receptionist took the envelope and inspected it. After a brief pause, she nodded and retrieved a key card from her drawer. "Very well, sir. Room 305, but please make sure to return the passport to her." "Thank you," I replied, my voice strained with mixed emotions. With the key card in hand, I made my way to the elevator. My heart pounded as I ascended. Upon reaching the third floor, I was overcome with a sense of doubt and dread. I was aware that the revelation I was about to make could potentially shatter the fragile remnant of our marriage. I was unable to turn back, and as I stood in front of room 305, I paused for a moment. With a deep breath, I inserted the key card into the lock and the door clicked open. The room was empty and meticulously kept, yet a sense of foreboding lingered in the air. I was compelled to leave the room. I remained in the room for a considerable length of time, apprehensively awaiting Emily's return. As I departed the hotel, my mind was consumed with the confirmation I had sought. Emily was indeed staying at the hotel, but not under her own name. She was using the name of her affair partner, Alex. The truth was indisputable, and it weighed heavily on my heart. The confrontation I had dreaded for so long was now inevitable. I was aware that our lives were on the brink of a profound and irreversible change. As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across our living room, I found myself anxiously awaiting Emily's return from the hotel. She had been away for the entire day, and the confirmation of her infidelity hung heavily in the air. The hours had dragged on, and I was consumed by a complex mixture of emotions, including anger, betrayal, and sadness. When the front door finally opened, I watched as Emily stepped inside. Her eyes met mine, and I saw a flicker of guilt before she put on a smile. She greeted me, trying to sound casual, but her voice trembled with nervousness. I struggled to maintain my composure, my heart pounding as I replied, "Hey Emily." She walked toward me, her arms outstretched as if expecting a warm embrace, but I couldn't bring myself to reciprocate. I had seen the truth. Despite the affectionate gesture, the betrayal remained. She embraced me firmly, her voice soft and apologetic. "I missed you today. We've been through so much, and I just want us to be okay again." I was unable to tolerate the hypocrisy of her words. "Is that so, Emily?" She pulled back her eyes, searching mine. "What's wrong? Why do you look so distant?" I took a step back, my emotions intensifying. "I know, Emily. I know about the affair, about Alex." Her face paled, and her eyes widened in shock. She stammered, her voice trembling. "I don't know what you're talking about." I couldn't contain my anger any longer. The word spilled out in a torrent. "I went to the hotel. Emily, I saw the truth. You're staying there under his name." Her denial faltered, and she slumped onto the couch. Her tears finally broke through. "I can't explain it. It's complicated." The room fell silent, save for the sound. The confrontation was anticipated, yet the reality was more distressing than anticipated. Pacing the room, the speaker struggled to find the appropriate words. "Emily," the speaker began, "I am unable to continue in this manner." The speaker continued, "I am unable to maintain the pretense that everything is well when it is not." The speaker then stated, "We have lost something irreparable." The listener, her eyes streaming with tears, asked, "Is it possible for us to attempt to resolve this issue? Although it was an unfortunate error on my part, I still love you." The gravity of her words lingered in the air, but I was unable to disregard the betrayal that had caused our separation. I took a deep breath and made a decision. I had already made up my mind, "Emily. We need to separate because it is the only way to find some semblance of peace in all of this." She nodded, her tears unabated. "I understand, but what about the children?" My heart ached at the thought of our children caught in the crossfire of our shattered marriage. As we found ourselves caught in the crossfire of our shattered marriage, we recognized the necessity of navigating this challenge together. However, we also recognized the importance of ensuring that our children had access to the truth. As the night settled in around us, the painful reality of our situation became increasingly evident. The love that had once bound us together had receded into the distance, leaving us with a future that remained uncertain. We were forced to confront the difficult path of separation in the wake of our confrontation with Emily. Our lives hung in limbo. The wreckage of our marriage was strewn about us. The days that followed were filled with somber discussions and difficult decisions. I knew that we had reached a crossroads in our lives. One evening as we sat in the dimly lit living room, our children safely asleep in their rooms, Emily and I began to discuss the future. The tension in the room was palpable, but we needed to find a resolution for the sake of our family. I broke the silence. My voice was laden with sorrow. It was imperative that we speak with the children. Emily, they were entitled to be made aware of the truth regarding the circumstances that were unfolding. She nodded, her eyes filled with regret. I was aware of her feelings, but I was also fearful of how they would respond. I was reluctant to cause them pain. I understood her apprehension, but I was convinced that maintaining their ignorance would only serve to prolong their distress. I was willing to be candid with them and to reassure them that we both loved them and that this situation was not their fault. The prospect of our children's confusion and sadness weighed heavily on us both, yet we recognized that it was a crucial step towards healing. As the days turned into weeks, we initiated the process of separating our lives, dividing assets, discussing custody arrangements, and untangling the complex web of relationships that had bound us together for so long. Each decision was excruciating, yet it was a necessary part of moving forward. One evening, as we sat at the kitchen table surrounded by legal documents and the remnants of our former lives, the kitchen table was surrounded by legal documents and the remnants of life we had once shared. Emily spoke up, stating that she had been thinking that it might be time for her to move out and give us and the children some space. Her words struck me with a mixture of relief and sadness, which I recognized as a potentially beneficial outcome. I replied, my voice heavy with resignation, that we both needed time apart to heal. As the days passed, Emily moved into a small apartment, and we began the process of co-parenting. The decision to separate was a difficult one, but it was clear to both of us that it was the best course of action for the children's well-being. One evening, as we met to discuss the children's schedules, Emily looked at me with a hint of sadness in her eyes. "I never wanted any of this to happen," she said, her voice filled with regret. I nodded, my heart heavy with sorrow. Neither of us wanted this to happen, but sometimes life takes unexpected turns, and we had to find a way to move forward. We did, each of us, on our own path of self-discovery. The discovery and healing of the scars of our failed marriage would forever be a part of us, but we were determined to find happiness and fulfillment in our separate journeys. Over time, we both began to rebuild our lives. Our children's laughter served as a reminder that love and hope could endure even in the face of heartbreak. The future remained uncertain, but we were determined to navigate it with grace and resilience, knowing that we had the strength to face whatever lay ahead.